You got to have priorities when it comes to drafting for this roster that's on a three-peat tear. What are they today with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We're inching ever closer to the NFL draft, and Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest is here to help us, as he always is, give us a little bit of fresh perspective for those of us that have been deep down in the draft tiers. Going to bring some light to our situation. We're brought to you by FanDuel. Make sure that you sign up because you can make every single moment more right now. New members are getting $150 back in bonus bets, guaranteed. Win or lose, don't have to do anything right. You just got to get in there and get active at FanDuel.com/lockedon. I'll tell you more about that coming up later. Now, Matt, I want to talk about what I'm not talking about. What's the surprise? We're going to get to that later in the show, how they can upgrade this offense effectively, maybe not the way that we're thinking, but effectively. And I think we'll start here on getting to deprioritizing some positions. That's here on the Locked On podcast today, folks. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. Use the code LOC at Rogue APC. You can get the draft guide. You can get the matrix. You can get them both. The discount applies across the board. So do that. Check it out. And then go check all of Matt's on ChiefsDigest.com because he's going to ingest everything from everyone everywhere and tell you what you need to know about the Chiefs. And I'm excited about that. Make sure you like, sub, hit the bell here on YouTube, and subscribe over on Spotify and Apple Music and anywhere that you can get free podcasts because we're there 5 days a week. Now, Matt, with all the preamble out of the way, I say preamble because I'm surprised after there was the re-signing of Mike Dana, pleasantly so, that basically the entire defensive line group, save injured Charles Omenihu, is returning. What does that tell you for Brett Veach in terms of, like, is that a checkbox done? Or is that, okay, I got my bases covered, now I can build on top?
Yeah, I mean, you're right now, I mean, as far as the defensive line goes, you're feeling pretty good about the rotation across the board. I mean, you've now have got a top three for sure to start the season, which you certainly want. I mean, you want to be able to have at least three guys on the edge that you're comfortable starting, and they've got that now with Dana, Karlaftis, and Felix. So that I think they're fine with, and at some point they'll get Charles Omenihu back. We think during the season. We'll see what that process is and what his timeline is going to be. Maybe we'll find out next week when we get to start hearing from Andy Reid and Brett Veach in the beginning of OTAs heading into the draft. But you know, you now have your at least your starting top of the rotation. If you want to add anything to that defensive line group, I mean, you've continued to have some of the guys in the rotation that you had last year. But now, you know, I tell you, if you want to upgrade, there's still a possibility. Is there a veteran out there? Is there still somebody in the draft that you want to? I mean, you know, Mike Dana was a third day pick and has turned into a pretty productive player for you. So you don't have to take an edge in the first round. I mean, you could. That might be one of the positions we're deprioritizing in the first round, that unless just some incredible talent falls into your lap. But especially at the tackle spot, I mean, I think you're still, even though you just signed Chris Jones, I think there's still a couple of positions that you're looking for there. I mean, remember, Chris is getting to be 30. I mean, you're at some point going to want to start looking at who's your next Chris Jones. And that starts now. I mean, you don't have to do it this year, but probably in the next 24 months you are for sure. So, and like Nick Jacobs that I've been talking about over our podcast, I mean, you still need a true nose. You need a true 0 or a 1 tech that can really be disruptive. And obviously Mike Pennell was that guy late in the season in the playoffs. But Mike's an old guy, so he's not going to necessarily be that guy for 20 games and 21 games. So you need to look at that spot. So yeah, even though they've shored up that entire defensive line, there's still a couple of needs there that they could certainly hit, whether it's with more depth or in the draft.
I like the way that you're putting that. And folks, you can find Matt at ChiefsDigest.com and Chiefs Digest here on YouTube if you want to see some of this stuff that we're talking about. The one tech in particular, I agree, Noddy's getting up there in terms of age as well. Pennell certainly is. The question becomes is how important in the hierarchy of this particular defense is the one tech? I don't know if they play enough of that alignment that they have to go out and spend a top 100, but there's certainly players. We've heard a lot of them linked with Joe Cullen going around the pro day circuit to be day 3 guys. It feels like that's the most likely spot for me for the defensive interior. Is that what you're leaning towards as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, obviously we're talking about Chiefs defense that was really good last year. And now one of the reasons why they were really, really good is because they had a really good pass defense. But where were the leaks at times last year? It was against the run. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, just straight up the middle was sometimes the weak points, and that got shored up with Pennell late in the season. But again, that Mike Pennell is a short term answer, both in terms of just how long he is going to continue to play and how many snaps he can give you in a season. Derek Notty's a good player, but is he that elite starting player? No, he's a nice piece and is a depth piece, but he's not that true dominant inside player. And Chris Jones is a dominant inside player, but is he dominant against the run? And no, that's not his position. I mean, he's really more of a 3 and an outside guy. So, when you're really talking about that interior and somebody who can dominate the middle, especially when the Chiefs get into some of their sub packages, when they only have 3 defensive linemen, and now you're talking about having just one tackle out there, who's that guy that eats space and can make sure that teams aren't running against your light boxes? I mean, Chiefs don't really have that guy. So I think it is a want. I mean, is it a desperate need for this defense? I mean, they played pretty well, but if you're just talking about shoring up the weaknesses from last year, run defense is one of them, and I think you absolutely start at the point of attack.
I cannot agree with you more, and I'm interested to see the way that it falls. On the offensive side, there's some similar things. It's about the philosophy of doing what you have to do to go back to another Super Bowl. We're going to hit that coming up next, how they go about that and what are those upgrades. Now, I do want to tell you that this is the way that it starts because, yes, the NCAA tournament is over. Sad Rock Chalk year. That's all right. But you can get in the action now because the NBA, NHL, and baseball is all firing up. The playoffs in the NHL in particular are going to be a lot of fun. Playoffs, you can get there with FanDuel. It's the place that you can bet every single game if you want to, and MLB is off and running. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Best deal going. Bet everything from slap shots to home runs to those slam dunks. Get everything in the app that's safe, easy to use, and very secure. While you're waiting, make sure you go over, get to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel also helps fuel what we do on Locked On Sports Today. It's 24/7. It's all the big shows and all the big news. Big news for me comes, Matt, in that, yes, there's 1,000 things they can do. I want to buckle down. We know that they have to address the offensive tackle, possibly. We know that they have to look at wide receiver. But outside of that, how can you make a strength stronger? That's the other side of the coin here. Rather than filling holes, what do you do to double down on what we saw last year? Is there a way forward that you feel doesn't have to involve a wide receiver early, say 1 or 2, that maybe they let that go for maybe what are thinner position groups or something like that in the draft that makes a strength stronger?
Well, and we've talked about it before, Ryan. I mean, when you're drafting, your worst picks that you get into are when you're drafting for the immediate season. I mean, especially when you're talking about your early picks, because if you're forced to take a position in the first and second round, even the third round, day 1 and day 2, if you're forced into taking a pick, sometimes you're going to get just boxed into taking a guy who's not good value, maybe isn't a good fit, just because you're trying to fill a need. What you're going to do best is if you address future needs. And if you look at the Chiefs and you start looking at 2025 and what are going to be their needs, biggest needs are going to be on the interior offensive line as far as upgrading that. I mean, you're going to still have Jawan Taylor, under contract for 2025. I mean, he's not going anywhere 24. I mean, 25 is still that's not an out year. I mean, he is going to be on this team in 25. So whether he's your left tackle or your right tackle, he's going to be here. Yes, you have an open question about who your left tackle is, but think about this. You have, you've got Joe Thuney under contract for 25, but not necessarily at an affordable rate. I mean, that's when your walk year would be with Joe Thuney. But you right now only technically have control over maybe Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith because you have the franchise tag. Doesn't mean you use it on them because you got Nick Bolton as a free agent too. You potentially could have control over neither of those guys for the 2025 season. So, the interior offensive line is going to be a huge need for the Chiefs in 25. You don't wait till 25 to address that. The Chiefs have to address it right now. So that's why, I mean, to me, one of the sneaky, positions of true need for the Chiefs is absolutely on the interior. And while I wouldn't necessarily say center, because I think that Creed is the most likely player that you can keep, whether it's you sign him long term, because center is the more affordable position. I mean, you can pay Creed Humphrey top of the center market. You can make him the highest paid center in the league. And that would still be cheaper than what Trey Smith's going to probably be, because the guard position market is just out of control right now. And unless it gets in check next year, I mean, Trey Smith, if he has a Pro Bowl caliber year, Trey Smith is going to be a $20 million caliber player. So, that's not in the market. I mean, so that's why I think you're probably you'd love to have somebody who can play both. I mean, if you're drafting a player, is it a center that you can move to guard? Is it a guard who has some center experience? I mean, that's what you're looking for. But I think that's absolutely going to be one of the Chiefs' needs. And, if they dress it in the first round, wouldn't necessarily surprise me. And receiver is always going to be that need until you fix the receiver position long term. And it's probably going to be something you take a shot at every year. So, yeah, I mean, there's some things you double down. I mean, are you going to take a quarterback early? No. I mean, are the Chiefs going to spend an early round pick on a running back? I think it's going to be a while before they do that again.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that as well. I'm into the value with all the tackle talk and all the wide receiver talk. I think interior offensive line is the value as well. Like you said, it's not only going to be a need a year from now, but it's where you can get impact players. A couple stand out to me. I don't know if you've had a chance to review them all, but I want to throw out some names. West Virginia's Frazier, been injured a little bit. Zach Zinter from Michigan, been injured a little bit. I think he should have been an easy round 2 guy. I think now he still goes on day 2, but it's going to be, I think, lower, down around where the Chiefs are picking. You have the kid from Holy Cross, the guard that's super, super athletic, a little bit more throwback to the zone-based blocking scheme that maybe the Chiefs went away from for a while. That could signal a return to it in less of this hybridization with some zone man blocking as well as zone. And then Bortolini is the guy that makes me think, if you were going to move Creed, the most athletic center in the last 3 classes is coming out in this particular group. He played at Wisconsin. They have a pretty good track record with offensive linemen. Does any of those guys scratch the itch what you think could fit?
Yeah, they do. I mean, and I don't want to give away surprises too much, and we'll have some more surprises later. But if you want to just talk about true surprise, I mean, if there's not an interior offensive lineman that goes early in the draft, and the Chiefs took something like a Troy Fontenot from Washington, or Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, I mean, that would be tremendous value at 32. I mean, you get one of the 2 best interior offensive linemen, that'd be fine. But then there's a whole group there, like the guys you mentioned, and I think the Chiefs have shown some interest in a Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. There's I think a half dozen players there who could be day 2, even maybe early day 3 draft picks that would be a good fit and developable players. I mean, once again, interior offensive line is one of those positions you don't have to take them in the first or second round for them to be true high caliber players. I mean, obviously you've got Creed Humphrey, who is a all-pro caliber player in the second round. You've got Trey Smith in the 6th. Now, there was extenuating circumstances, sure, but you can find value on down. So, yeah, I think a lot of those guys, and one name I'm going to throw in there, not that I think that will get picked by the Chiefs or will get drafted for this purpose, but where he goes is going to be interesting, because Jordan Morgan from Arizona, played tackle, would not play tackle if drafted by the Chiefs. He would be a guard because he doesn't have arm length to play tackle. And I'm not sure anybody in the league is going to take him as a tackle. So he could be and I don't mean this as a comp from a caliber standpoint, but maybe ends up being a Darian Kennard type, because, Darian wanted to play tackle, and that's one of the reasons why he was available when the Chiefs took him. And hey, the move to guard didn't maybe pan out the way that they wanted to. Maybe it just wasn't a long enough experiment. But if the same thing happens with Jordan Morgan, and and he's kind of, if he gets his mindset, and I don't know where it is. I mean, as far as if he wants to play tackle in the NFL and that's where he's dead set, all of a sudden that guy like him is available in the 4th round. Yeah, I'm making the call and taking the chance and saying, okay, well, we like you. We're going to turn you into a guard, but we like you.
I like the way that you put that. And he's a guy that I think, when you look at 5 position availability, he's a guy that can play 4 of them. Fautano can play, I think, all 5 of them. I've only heard of him snapping a couple of times, but I looked at it from people that I've talked to. I can't prove that, but at least 4, right? I have to admit, I'm a little smitten with Fautano's game. I like what he does. I think he would be a great fit here. But those two guys in particular, again, with that versatility, that inside-outside versatility, that you play your best five. I think that allows Wanya Morris to continue to grow. It allows you to shift things around. And if I had to throw one out, folks, I'm fresh off of completing the draft guide, and I've watched a lot of offensive linemen lately. Keep the name Layden Robinson in the back of your mind as a day 3 guy that reminds me of Trey. If they want to keep the power aspect of it, it's another guy from an SEC school that could fit. So that said, now that we've thrown out as many names as possible, Matt, now I want to move on from what we think is going to happen to what I have no concept of. Something always hits me out of the blue, whether it's Darwin Thompson or somebody else. On the backside of this, folks, we're going to talk surprises, what might happen that we haven't even touched on yet. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Sports Today feed here on YouTube and on Amazon TV. Make sure you subscribe on the on the Chiefs Digest channel on this platform on YouTube, as well as checking out the site, ChiefsDigest.com. We are with its editor, Matt Derrick. If you haven't met Matt before, he is the sanity to my tinfoil, and I appreciate that. And so now this is where I kind of go off the rails, man. And I want you to flip roles with me and give me the surprises that you think could come that we haven't even discussed or thought of at this point. Does anything jump off the tip of your tongue?
Well, the one position that I hear a lot of people talk about that the Chiefs don't have a need for is defensive secondary. And honestly, I mean, I'm never going to rule out the Chiefs taking some defensive secondary guys because of one reason. They're really good at coaching them up and using that position to turn into collateral. The Chiefs have purposely, not kept and retained the guys that they've developed in the secondary, and especially at corner. You've had Traverse Ward now. You've had L'Jarius Sneed. Even if you want to take a guy like Rashad Fenton, if they flipped Rashad Fenton for a draft pick, tried to, so they've done a really good job of developing those players and then making it so that they continue the system. They're never having to spend a ton of money. They've had to spend a little bit of money at one position in particular, and that's safety. And, and I think they would like to get out of the habit of having to do that. Would they like to maybe, make sure that they've got their own next Justin Reed? They've got, Brian Cook right now. It's Jamari Connor, that guy. Is it somebody else that they got their eye on? I could certainly see, either of the secondary positions because, one, the Chiefs are always, I assume that Brett Veach is every year going to take a corner because why not? You're too good at scouting them. You're too good at coaching them up. Draft one every year, because if you do that, you can pretty much ensure that you keep the pipeline going. And we've seen it. And some of your seasons are not afraid to draft more than one. But even though they took Connor last year and they took Brian Cook the year before that, once again, Justin Reed is in the last year of his deal. So you're always going to need 3 safeties to play for you. So, I think, once again, looking at 25, what are your needs? You're going to probably need another corner and you're going to need another safety. So to me, both those positions are on the board. My question is going to be, who is going to be the running back in this year's draft for this team? Is it going to be somebody that is undrafted, or are they going to, maybe use a 7th round shot at somebody that they don't think that they can get as an undrafted guy? I've got my crush because I'm a Mizzou guy and Cody Schrader's just sitting right there. And he's a tough little runner, maybe a little bit too much in the style of a Clyde Edwards-Helaire for some people's purpose. I think he's more of, I'd like to say he's more of a Jerick McKinnon, but he's not. But I think Cody is tough enough to be kind of like that Jerick McKinnon, because what made McKinnon who he is more than anything is his toughness. Because he's such a great 3rd down back. He's not afraid of contact. Cody's not afraid of anything. And he's also good at catching the football and moving downfield. So, hey, if you're talking about getting a Clyde Edwards-Helaire type in the 7th round, I'll take that anytime.
Yeah, a whole lot better than 32, yeah. I like the kid from New Hampshire, Lobb. Back there is that 7th round flyer as well. He's another name. And I do think Will Shipley has fallen down a lot of boards for some reason. A little bit of availability, that kind of thing. I think he'll be a day 3 guy that's available, and maybe the Chiefs do something weird. And that's the surprise that I was kind of leaning towards is, could they spend a 5th or God forbid a 4th on a running back I don't know if that's in the cards, but that would be one possibility that I have not considered at this point. That's all right.
Hey, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've now seen it go both ways. We've seen Brett Veach use a first round pick on a running back. We've seen him use a 7th round pick on a running back. We've seen him just go the undrafted route. We haven't really seen him go in the middle yet. So I don't know if he's completely gun shy or not. Although I do think that now that he is of a little bit of the philosophy that running back is a position, especially in this offense, that you can kind of get away with. Although I will say this, and that is the Kareem Hunt example. And that if you've got a Kareem Hunt caliber running back, it does take this offense to another level. So not saying there's a Kareem Hunt that you're going to find in the 3rd round, but if you do, it does kind of take this. It does take this offense to another level. So
it does, and it will. You're absolutely right. It's the last mismatch that you can put on the field, given everything else. I like where you're at, Matt. Folks, if you want more from Matt, go to Chiefs Digest. Make sure you get to rogueapc.com right now. Today, use the code LOC, and you're going to get a discount on the draft guide, which is the biggest one and the most film reviews we've ever put on paper. The staff cracked it out today, this year, whatever day it is, because I'm punch drunk. But it's been a lot of effort, and it's finally out. We will have a small revision to it coming before draft day, but make sure you get over there and check that out. Matt, thank you for your time and keeping me on the straight and narrow, mostly between the rails.
Hey, and great job on the draft guide as always. I co-endorse. Go check it out because Ryan and team's work is absolutely incredible.
Cheers, and thank you. Folks, have a great day. We appreciate you being with us today. Check out Matt, check out us. Make sure you like and sub, and we'll be back with you.